Hey guys, quick question. Now, which is the most iconic of all Mercedes-Benz models? That's right, it's the E-Class. This is the new one. We're gonna look at the outside, we're gonna look at the inside, we're gonna take it for a test drive, and then we're gonna decide if this is still the most Mercedes of all Mercedes-Benzes. I'm Julian, and you're with MrChia.sg. Now, since I was a boy back in the 80s, the E-Class has been the gold standard in towkay cars. That means the boss's car, for all you English speakers out there. They were comfy, elegant, and well engineered. Look, this one's doors have fallen off, but it's still going strong. And now we have the 6th generation. This one here is the E200 in exclusive trim with a launch price of just under $409,000 with COE. There's a cheaper avant-garde version as well as a more pricey, more sporty AMG line. All of them have a 2.0 litre turbo with 204 horsepower and 320 Newton meters of torque. They also get a mild hybrid setup that gives little bursts of extra energy with 23 horsepower. Eventually, we're also going to get a plug-in hybrid, the E300e. Now, many people think the E-Class is a bit of an uncle's car. So we should get an uncle to review it. I don't see any uncle around, so I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. Now let's start at the back of the car. Before this, Mercedes already switched to horizontal tail lamps with the E-Class, so this is a slightly evolutionary design, but it does have this new element here that joins the lamps to sort of emphasize the width of the car. And then there's this chrome strip that stretches clear across the back, which is very, very posh. Now since I'm back here, I may as well have a look inside the boot. Now the first thing I want to show you is that you still have a lip over here, so if you have something heavy to move out of here, you still have to use a bit of muscle power to clear that lip. Otherwise, it is very quintessentially Mercedes, so there's quite a lot of space under the floor here. There's actually no spare tire, but there is an inflator kit. And then you have useful features like these hooks here for your groceries, and if those aren't enough, you can pull this down and hang your stuff here so it doesn't roll around all over the floor. Now, if you do need more space than what you have here, and this is quite deep, you can expand it by doing this. Now when you do that, you obviously have enough space for a good day out at IKEA. But I tell you what, even with the rear seats in place, there's actually 540 litres of space back here. And that's enough for 1,620 cans of beer, which is a good weekend in Bavaria. Now still staying at the back, we've got more chrome down here, which is very posh and does look nice. But check this out, this is a fake exhaust. I mean, I don't even know where the real exhaust pipes are on this car. Now, one thing that is impossible to miss though are these new 3-pointed star motifs on the tail lights. I guess I have no choice but to give this car a 5-star review. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but there is a kind of slight forward tilt over here at the back of the car, and it's a nice little visual trick that kind of gives the car a forward thrust, as if the car is in motion. Now, something that can be quite hard to see in a dark car like this is this line over here, which under the right sort of angles gives the car a bit of muscularity at the back. I really like that. Have a look at the wheels as well. This press car has 20 inches. Don't know why the E-Class comes with 19 inches as standard in Singapore, so these are an upgrade, but they look really nice. Oh, with every Mercedes, there is one thing to talk about, and that's the prestige measurement. That's the distance between the front axle here and the A-pillar, and apparently the longer this measurement is, the more grand the car looks, and that's just one of the visual tricks that Mercedes-Benz uses to make its cars look more posh. This car has pop-up door handles. That's very much like the S-Class, and it's of course meant to make the car smoother through the wind. In our part of the world, a lot of people actually use their E-Class with a chauffeur. So let me just shut the door and take note of the soft closing suction doors. Most of the materials are quite nice. This upholstery is actually quite lovely. The materials here are pretty posh. There are some cheap plastics though, so this bit here doesn't feel so posh. This bit here, yeah, doesn't really pass the fingernail test. There is actually no separate control panel for my air conditioning. Tell you what though, this new E-Class is slightly larger than the old one in every dimension. The wheelbase is 22 millimeters longer. 22 millimeters longer. Now, one very important test, I call it the newspaper test. Now, this is actually something that a Lexus engineer once told me they actually paid attention to, and that's whether or not there is enough room in the back for the towkay to open up his newspaper. Let me just check my share prices. You know what? It is actually not bad. So that's a pass for those of us who are still in love with analog technology. But we live in the digital age now, so look at this pixel paradise. You get a 12.3-inch driver display, and the main touchscreen is a whopping 14.4 inches. And what's this? Another 12.3-inch display for the front passenger? So this setup is called the MBUX Superscreen, and I think it's part of a trend because I also saw a third screen for the front passenger in the new Porsche Macan EV. And what this does is it kind of creates a sort of individual entertainment zone. What do I mean by that? Well, I've got a screen in front of me with all the same apps that you get in the main touchscreen here, but they work independently, so I can get my own thing going. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, if I'm curious where we're going, there's a navigation app. I can go back to open, say, Spotify, Apple Music, all kinds of like online music apps. Oh, there are simple games as well, like this kind of tile memory thing. I have seen actually Angry Birds on this screen, and that's my all-time favorite game, so I bet you could download that. But if I want, I could even open up a browser and start surfing the web, or I can do my favorite thing and watch myself on YouTube. And of course, that means we don't have to talk to each other on a long drive, let's say to Malaysia or whatever. And in fact, I might need a moment to myself right now. Will you marry me?
Sure.
Now let's talk about the quality and the ambience of the new E-Class for a moment now. I'm kind of an old school, kind of wood and leather guy, and I really like it in here. So many surfaces are covered in leather and they really do pass the fingernails test. All feels quite solid and well built in here, and I really love this sort of open pore wood that they have going here. Something I've noticed as well is Mercedes-Benz always uses lighting really well, and they've done that with the new E-Class. So there's this strip that goes from the front doors, basically clear across the dashboard to kind of wrap around the front passengers, and it really does look very nice. You've got some more traditional controls here, so if you're used to an E-Class, you're not going to be all confused when you jump into the new one. There's quite a lot of storage as well, so between the front seats there's quite a deep compartment here. No gear lever, of course, that's been a Mercedes thing for a while. And underneath here, well, there's all sorts of crap in here, but if you're the kind of guy who really likes to keep things neat, and many CEOs are like that, well, this is really going to help. Now finally, let's have a look at what's new over here. Now, MBUX tends to get better with each generation, and I can see that they've switched back to a sort of landscape orientation here. It used to be portrait, and as before, the graphics are all quite lovely and crisp, and they render very smoothly. It seems to have a new kind of menu system where it has these tiles that really make this look like a smartphone. So if you're used to using a smartphone, you'll be used to using this in no time. I'm sure you've noticed this camera on the dashboard over here. Now it serves a couple of functions. One is it actually keeps an eye on you. So if you're the driver and you've been paying too much attention to what's happening on your passenger screen, it can kind of blank it out. So it's watching you to make sure that you behave. Number two, it actually works as a selfie camera. So let me just turn on that app. In the future, this is actually apparently supposed to be able to enable Zoom calls, so you can have a conference as you drive along. But frankly, I can't think of a more horrible thing than having a Zoom call when you're driving a Mercedes-Benz. But never mind about Zoom calls, let's talk about zooming down the road in the E200 instead. Now, first impressions, I have to say, when you're driving along at city speeds, the controls are very light and it does feel like a Mercedes because the gearbox is smooth, the brake pedal gives good feedback, so it's actually quite a relaxing car to drive. This chair actually feels like it was built for a heavy German guy who only eats sausages and drinks beer. As I mentioned, this does really feel like a Mercedes, so it's quiet, it's refined, it's comfortable. I tell you what though, when you actually do come to a corner, the E-Class is actually quite nice. The steering is pretty responsive and it's actually quite precise. Now don't forget, this isn't an SUV, so it's much lower to the ground, so you don't get that sort of leaning through corners, you don't get rocked around in your seat that much. I think that simply by virtue of being a sedan, it actually feels quite tidy, quite sort of well behaved through corners, and dare I say it, even a little bit sporty. But if you're really eco-minded, let me show you something quite cool that you can do. So first I have to set the car into the eco driving mode, and let's say you're rolling along the road like this and you take your foot completely off the accelerator pedal. When conditions allow, the engine goes to sleep completely, and when I say sleep, it means it's switched off and it's running at 0 RPM, and of course when it does that, it uses zero fuel. You do lose a bit of cold air from the air conditioning, but if it gets too warm, then it starts up again to supply the cold air. The point is, with the mild hybrid system, the engine kind of starts up again so smoothly that you don't really mind that it goes to sleep. In fact, sometimes you can't even tell it's done it. So you can get up to speed on the highway, take your foot off the gas,
and when the engine goes to sleep, you can actually carry on for quite a lot of distance. It's surprising how far you can go actually. So I think that, all the digital features kind of make the E-Class feel very contemporary, but I think this is actually one of the best engines to have ever graced an E200.
Finally, let's have a look at the front of the all-new E-Class. Now, I want to draw your attention to something, which is that Mercedes says it is going to be all-electric by 2030. That's only 6 years from now. So there is actually a lot going on with this E-Class. First of all, look at the headlights. There's these signatures at the bottom here, which kind of make you think about the time when the E-Class had 4 lamps in front. And then you've got these subtle creases in the bonnet, which are like little power domes. And I think that's there to kind of remind you that there is still a combustion engine inside there. On the other hand, have a look at the grille and how it blends into the headlamps. It's very much like the EQE, the all-electric model that is the E-Class counterpart. So there is a lot going on here, and I think Mercedes is kind of subtly bringing everything together just to let you know that someday the EQE and the regular E-Class are going to merge into one product. So if you've always been a fan of this most iconic and quintessential Mercedes model, well, bear in mind this could well be the last E-Class as we know it. And if you are thinking of pulling the trigger on a new E200, well, this could very well be your last chance. And here's my big chance, guys. Wish me luck. If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe or share it with your friend, like the video or leave us a comment. We're just a new channel and we could really use your support.